He looked at me across the dinner table. The air was thick with the smell of expensive steak and even more expensive arrogance. Then he spoke, his voice cutting through the silence. "How can a poor man like you even keep up with this family?" Those were his words. Not a question, but a sentence. A verbal branding. Everyone laughed. It was a practiced, polite sound. No one stopped him. Not my wife. Not her mother. The silence that followed was louder than the laughter. And I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just smiled and said nothing. Because I knew something they didn't. Some truths don't need defending. They need timing. And mine was waiting in his boardroom. This is the story of how an outsider became the one who owned the room. In their world, I was the outsider, a ghost in the machinery of their success. They saw the lack of a flashy car and assumed a lack of ambition. No designer suits, no visible success. To them, success had a very specific look, a uniform, and because I didn't match it, I didn't exist. So they made a decision about me. They filed me away under unremarkable without ever asking what I was building in the dark. Then there was him, my father-in-law, the center of their universe, confident, loud. In his mind, he was untouchable. The CEO of a powerful company, respected by the public, feared by his employees, and at every family dinner, he made sure I knew my place. It was subtle at first, a side eye here, a condescending remark there. But as his power grew, the masks came off. The insults became less subtle. That night, the night it all changed, he finally crossed a line. He didn't just poke at my pride, he tried to dismantle it. "How can a poor man like you keep up with this family?" The table went quiet. You could hear the ice melting in the glasses. Then came the laughter, controlled, polite, but real. It was the sound of people who thought they knew the end of the story. And I did nothing, because reacting gives people power. It shows them where it hurts, and I had no intention of giving him any power over me. What no one knew, what he couldn't possibly imagine, was that the company he proudly ran wasn't actually his anymore. Years ago, I made a quiet investment, a small percentage, then another. I moved through the market like a ghost, leaving no footprints. A series of moves no one noticed, acquisitions of debt, proxy votes gathered in the shadows, until eventually, I owned the controlling stake. But I never said anything, not to my wife, not to the board, because ownership without timing is just information. I wanted the full payoff. I didn't expose him, I didn't correct him when he called me poor. I waited, I watched, I learned his every move. The more confident he became, the more visible his weaknesses were. Arrogance is a blinding light. It makes you forget to look behind you. Power isn't about what you have, it's about when you reveal it. It's about the moment of impact, and that moment was approaching. A week later, the day of the reckoning arrived. He walked into that meeting confident as always, prepared to lead. He was prepared to decide the future of the company, but as he looked around the room, something felt different. The air was cold. New faces, a new structure. The loyalists he thought he had were looking at the floor. He was a king without a kingdom. And then I walked in, not in a designer suit, just in the same clothes he had mocked a week before. The irony was palpable. At first, he didn't react. He thought I was there to drop off lunch, or perhaps I'd lost my way. Then he looked again. Confusion turned to irritation. "What are you doing here?" he barked. His voice was still loud, but the authority was beginning to fray. I didn't answer immediately, because silence makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to fill the void with their own fear. The legal team spoke first. Their voices were flat, clinical. They presented the documents. They confirmed the ownership change. Votes aligned. The math was indisputable. And suddenly, the room changed. The gravity shifted toward me. The man he dismissed at dinner, the poor man who couldn't keep up, was now the one in control, the one who owned his legacy. He tried to speak, to regain control, to explain that there must be some mistake. But authority doesn't come from words. It comes from position, and his position was gone. It wasn't taken in a fight, it was simply replaced, like an old part in a machine. I didn't humiliate him. I didn't raise my voice or gloat. I didn't repeat his words back to him. I didn't need to. Because revenge isn't about repeating disrespect. It's about removing the illusion of power. Once the illusion is gone, there's nothing left. And as he sat there, silent for the first time in his life, he finally understood something that would haunt him. The man he underestimated was the one he should have been watching all along. Watch the quiet ones. They're the ones changing the world.
Select now another video in our series of family and company dramas. They are all powerful stories of people coming back stronger after they have been humiliated or hurt by family members or their management. Always make sure you stay strong. Let nobody ever tell you what you are worth. You know the best. Of course.